Hey folks, I'm talking about Jupiter retrograde for 2022. Jupiter is retrograde. He's going to be retrograde for several months. He'll be retrograde until September 12th. So he started going retrograde May 14th, and he'll be retrograde until September 12th. So that's quite a long journey. And this retrograde cycle is going to include a journey back into Sagittarius, where he'll then be till almost the end of the year, until November. But right now, we're going to be processing a lot of our hopes and fears, beliefs, sort of panic. There's a lot of potential, a lot of uncertainty going on right now. Of course, as we're still dealing with the sort of COVID, COVID stuff and whatnot. And as you see, I also have a thing on the screen there that talks about retrograde planets. I do have a really good course if anybody is interested in actually learning about how to analyze retrograde planets. I'll show you here. If you click that, you'll wind up going to a, 1 second. You'll wind up going to this web page. Where is it? Okay, where cancel. Let me do it here. Where you can get the retrograde course, and again, it's really one of the most comprehensive courses that that I've seen. How the heck? What's going on here? It's not coming up. Let me do it here. But there's a very specific way to analyze retrograde planets. And, if you do it correctly, it's definitely something that will greatly enhance your abilities as an astrologer, because every planet, every chart, almost every chart has some retrograde planets in it. And this was on Mercury retrograde, but there's a great, I offered a great discount because this is such an important skill to have as an astrologer. Exactly what we are learning about our soul when the planet goes retrograde, like a natal planet, a chart in the or a planet in the natal chart when it goes retrograde, when it's retrograde in our chart, it shows that we're really reflecting on that thing, and it becomes a very important area of focus in our life. Now, the same is true, of course, when the planet goes retrograde in the sky at any given time. It's a time for us to really ponder that thing, really concentrate on its nature, so that we can, transcend the negativity that is associated with that planet. The negativity of the karma. And with Jupiter, we're trying to overcome our need to believe in something like blindly. Jupiter gives us faith. Jupiter is called guru or teacher. And this guru or teacher is what gives us a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose, and allows us to explain the things in our life and to understand them, so that we're not just being triggered by our fears or our past beliefs. We were all raised to have certain beliefs, whether you believe it or not. We tend to think we're so smart and we're so, savvy, and, that we're so intellectual and so intelligent. We're mostly a bunch of beliefs. And many of those beliefs were put into us by someone else, other people, culture. Like if you were raised in the West, you have a certain belief about the universe. You might not think you do, and frankly, a lot of those beliefs are sort of Judeo-Christian in nature. Again, we might not think it is. I wasn't even raised with a Judeo-Christian background where my parents weren't religious or whatever, but I grew up in a Judeo-Christian society and world, and we still live in it. We still have, and many of those are sort of puritanic values and we are raised in that kind of Jupiter belief. And it sort of frames our sense of meaning and hope and purpose. Most of us, if not all of us who are, Westerners, were raised at least with the belief that God is sort of like an old man in the sky who there's a judgment day and there's something, all of that kind of iconography around Christianity is just kind of the way we were brought up. And if you don't believe that, you're sort of outside of the norm. Then your beliefs are sort of outside. Well, of course, now in this day and age, people have been raised in a more open-minded way, raised to see things in a different way with a more inclusive nature. I just use that as an example. Not that everybody's Christian or what have you, but I'm just putting in a larger context that whether we know it or not, we have a lot of beliefs, because, especially in this day and age, let's be real. Everybody thinks there's, again, so innovative and so, I'm a researcher. I research things myself and I find my own answers. And yeah, but those answers are framed by a worldview that for the most part is very Western. Even this hyper over-reliance on science or to question science. Like, for example, we see a lot of skepticism. Skepticism is it's a scientific method. Maybe we're skeptical of science, but then we use a scientific method to question the science. It's all very Western. And I say this because I want people to understand this bias. And I actually teach on this quite a lot when I teach at conferences. One of the first things that I teach, especially if it's at like a Western astrology conference, or even just in a very Western mode, one of the first things I teach is there's a Western view and an Eastern view. There's a Western worldview and there's an Eastern worldview. And as a Vedic astrologer, everything comes from an Eastern perspective. Whether people know it or not, they're very plugged into a Western perspective of there's body and then there's mind and then spirit somewhere up there somewhere. But we're very much about being the body and being this physical body who is living or dying. And, we got to do things to save this world and save this earth and save this body and everything. We're very attached to that whole idea. Now, of course, we should be, because we do live in a body. We've incarnated with a body. Got it. Totally get it. But it's still, in many ways, especially on a spiritual level and in the spiritual sense, it's a very Western way to see things. The Eastern view is not that we're a body. The Eastern view is we are pure consciousness. That's who we really are. Nothing that happens in this world, in this earth, is going to take away anything that's real. Again, this isn't just an idea to play with. Oh, that's right. This thing called Maya, illusion. That's right. Yeah, that's there too somewhere. No, that's the point. That's the point. The point is, that's the thing that's reality. And everything after that, the karma that we're experiencing through the body, that we're living through the body, that we're expressing through our emotions, how that spirit and consciousness feels in this lifetime based on the actions we've taken, and then how those actions filter down into this physical body to then take new actions, this thing called karma, this law of karma and this law of dharma and karma, which is connected directly to Indian metaphysical thinking or Eastern esoteric thinking, which again is not Western at all. It's still in many ways the most revolutionary thing in the world, is that you're not the body. Now I hear you kicking and screaming, but you're not the body. Promise, at least in the Eastern sense. So I'm putting this in a larger frame right now because we're talking about Jupiter, which is guru, which is teacher. And these are the first teachings. And your first worldview that you need to examine is this one. What do you really think is reality? We're all sick and tired of hearing everybody tell us what's reality now. Because now, of course, we're in COVID reality. And again, we're just everybody's going bananas with their version of the conspiracy and the this and the that and what's really happening and what does it mean, and we're all just like, bah. I get it. Me too. Again, I'm right in there with you. But what I see in most of it is just people buying into one version of their worldview. And one version of the worldview is that whatever is going on, whatever the reality is, like especially if it's the very Western materialistic, I'm this body, and we need to come together to save this earth and save this world. And yes, we do. That's part of why we're here. We're stewards of this earth. But guess what? The earth is going to be fine without us. One day, even if we destroy ourselves, we're not going to destroy the earth. Earth will probably go on pretty well without us, as we can see right now as we're all locked in our home. So anyway, I don't want to digress too much, but we see one version or another of, let's say, our fears. Whatever our fears are, that, okay, let's say that it's the deepest conspiracy theories, let's say, that are happening now, that this has all been planned to control us, to, make us all vaccinated, microchipped so we can be tracked and manipulated, and all of that. Okay, let's say that we literally believe that that's going to be happening. Well, if there's an Eastern view to that, the Eastern view is like, well, this is consciousness playing itself out, and if that's what's going to happen, I don't want it to happen, but I'm still pure consciousness. And nothing that happens is going to destroy that. It's still sad. It's still tragic. It's still a horrible thing. But there's pure consciousness. That's who I truly am. And I have access to that all the time, no matter what's happening to the body, to the world, because I have tools like meditation, yoga, spiritual practices, that is a direct connection to the imperishable self. Conversely, if it's a very Western paradigm, something like that is like, oh my God, and now fears go crazy, and it's, a whole different attachment to reality. And, I talk about this first because this Jupiter retrograde, especially right now because it's in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, its dignity is it's in its debilitated sign, because this is the sign where we tend to lose hope. You see, every astrological indicator is a divine placement. There is no mistakes. In many ways, there's no bad placements. Jupiter in Capricorn isn't bad, and then it's good in Cancer. Again, Jupiter in Capricorn can deliver the purest version of the most beautiful connection to Guru, just as it can when it's in Pisces or Cancer or whatever, because it's Jupiter. It's this divine deity known as Brihaspati. What happens, though, and the dignity of the planets wind up showing that in a certain environment, the direct access to that purest expression of that energy in you, it's not out there somewhere, it's in you, it's your nature. That when it's in Capricorn, in the sky or in the natal chart, it tends to get bogged down in all of the problems of the world, the fears of the world, the stress of the world, and the stress of Saturn energy, which is mainly fear of death, fear of being controlled, fear of being dominated. In fact, feeling dominated, feeling pushed down, so that natural inspiration is harder to access. That just means it's harder to access. It doesn't mean it isn't there. And in fact, when Jupiter is in Capricorn, let's say it's in the natal chart, or let's say it's in the sky, like it is right now, this will be a pervasive life lesson. Because we're talking about a transit in the sky right now, this is a collective lesson, meaning we're all feeling it, because it's not in your chart or my chart, it's in the sky right now. So we're all collectively going through this lack of hope, this feeling that we're being dominated by structures larger than anything we can figure out, anything we can control. Again, this is where Capricorn and Saturn, that's where they exist, in this realm of control, because we try to control usually out of fear. That's the first reason we start to control, but there's nothing wrong with control, especially when we control ourselves, which is what we're supposed to do. Saturn gives us self-control. Capricorn energy is about self-control, which in a better way is called self-mastery, which means the response to your fear of this body dying is not to go, okay, now I'm going to control it. Okay, now I know there's all these conspiracies are all out to get me. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get bitter. Not to do all of that. It's to go, okay, I don't have any control over anything. So what do I have control over? This. And that's all there is anyway. That's all there is. Sorry to disappoint you, but that's all there is anyway. All of this is a wonderful Leela, is what it's called. It's called a Leela. We're all having a Leela together, you and me, cheering each other on, yelling at each other, calling each other stupid, calling each other brilliant. We're all just playing a Leela. It means these games of the Divine Mother. Lord Krishna played a lot of Leelas, a lot of games to see how we respond. It's not because any of it's real, ultimately real. It's not because any of it's even really that serious. What do you mean not serious? The whole humanity, we're microchipping, that's not serious? Okay, whatever it is we're ready to go crazy on. I get it. It's serious and it's not. Every human being that's ever lived, every culture that's ever existed, have had some version of this on some level. You say, well, it's never been this bad because now we have all these many people and no. We can always dress it up like, oh, it's never been blah, blah, blah. Again, none of it's true. It's just a story. It's the story. So this Jupiter retrograde right now in Capricorn is where we're really feeling the pressure of that story. And you as an individual, you're responding the way you respond. Let's be real. This is how you respond to everything. This is how you respond to all pressure. This is how you find hope or disappointment or whatever it is in everything, not just this. Now, this is making it pretty clear. It's pretty clear how you respond right now. And see, this is why these times of enormous pressure also are times of enormous revelation. They reveal the truth. And they reveal a truth that you wouldn't have seen had there not been as much pressure. We often get a little bit of pressure, a little bit here and there, a little bit here and there, just enough to make us go, ooh, but I can still control things. I can still control things. Okay, there's pressure, but I can still control this. Then what happens when there's so much pressure that you know you can't control it? What are you left to then do? What are you left to control after you have no external control, or you feel like you have no external control? What's left? That thing that always was there anyway. And those who are good, or those who have practiced controlling that other thing, those who do that all the time, those who realize a long time ago they had no control over all of this, and all of this is this beautiful dance and this beautiful Leela, and they still feel the sadness and the pain for everyone unhappy and stressed out, and they want everyone to be happy. They experience all that too, but they know that they're never going to control all of that or solve that anyway. So they learned a long time ago to tap into this teaching and wisdom that is beyond. They're not as stressed out. They're not as stressed out because they've been doing a lot of dry runs. This isn't their first experience with knowing they have no control. And so I want you to understand this too. And I talked about this quite a bit in my 2020 forecast and on, that these are times where we're going to be really challenged, especially to find the stillness and peace and silence within. Because we're going to know that we have no control. We're going to be frustrated with the people around us who we think are just idiots, who would just stop doing whatever it is that we think they're doing that would make it all better, or whatever all of it is. We're going to get angry and bitter and frustrated. And that's going to reveal something that is supposed to lead us back to that place of stillness and silence, introspection and peace. And when it does, then we get the real jewel and the real lesson of Jupiter and also Saturn and Capricorn energy, which is what I'm describing, that stillness, silence, peace, and real teachings and real guru, which can only be found by going through that lack of control. In many ways, this is how the debilitated placements are necessary for us to test the real, the highest function of whatever the planet is. You can do this on any planet. We look at the exalted place and say, oh yeah, this is where it's so great. But it doesn't really matter. We never get the pure essence of any of the planetary energies until we've overcome whatever the problem is with that debilitated placement. For Jupiter, it's Capricorn, which means we never have a truly authentic and pure relationship with Guru until we've overcome our fears. Until then, our relationship with Guru and teaching and higher wisdom and inspiration is very shallow. It's immature, it's not tested, and it's just some way to try to make us feel good, which is just another emotional experience. And by the way, here's another contrast between the West and the East. In the East, consciousness is not the same as emotion, it's not the same as feeling. Consciousness is beyond all of that. It's pure awareness. In the West, even spirituality, for most Westerners, spirituality is some emotion they have sometimes. Oh, I'm spiritual when I'm feeling this elated emotion. Everything is an emotion in the West. Everything is an emotional experience. And we take spirituality even as some thing that makes me feel good. Guess what? Most of the time, real spirituality, at least at first, does not make you feel good. It's a challenge. It's a test. And on the other side of it, it's not even like you feel good, quote, like some elated, like, oh, I was so happy with my friends or something. What you feel is peace. Write that one down, peace. Because what we really need is peace, not more emotion. We got plenty of that. And what do you think is related to peace? Saturn, Shani, Shanti, Shani. And this is where Jupiter is right now and where Saturn is as well. In Capricorn, related or ruled by Shani, ruled by Saturn, who brings Shanti, which is peace. Until you have peace with yourself and you've been able to overcome this white knuckle grip that you have on what you think is happening or whatever it is, this kind of attachment to this separate life, you have no peace. As long as you have attachment to all that, you have no peace. Or you have as much peace as you have detachment from that as your main focal point of identity. All the Vedic sciences and teachings are to evolve your identity beyond this limited local, physical, emotional experience toward that transcendent self that is the imperishable. And it really doesn't even begin to show up until there's some reckoning with your mortality. People who reckoned with it early in their life and got through it are more used to it. You see many times, and especially in the West, where there's a term called hothouse flowers, where someone was raised in flowers that are raised in hothouses. They're not used to pests. You put them outside in a regular nature, and they die quickly because they don't have a lot of resilience. And you see in the West, everyone is so triggered, and we're in scary territory, and it's very easy to forget that we don't really know where things are going, and we don't have control over things that are beyond our control. And didn't say that very artfully, but what I'm saying, I'm talking now about literal situations in the world, especially as we're dealing with coming back from the from the COVID experience and what it could mean for the futures of like vaccines and all kinds of things. Like, what does this mean for the world? We have a voice. Collectively, the best thing all of us can do is be still and peaceful and loving and intelligent and aware and not get ahead of ourselves, not think we know more than we know, not conflate ideas and issues with people that I like this person, so everything they say I'm going to believe in, and then stop thinking critically on any level. This is one of the biggest problems I see personally in the world is everyone falls into these cults, these cliques, these silos, because we might agree with a certain outcome or person, then we stop thinking critically about what they said, and then we just believe everything, and then we get into these fights over. Look, everyone in the world pretty much wants the same thing. We want to live in a world where we're healthy, where we're not controlled by these solutions that are worse than the problems. Everyone agrees with this stuff. And yet it's nothing but people fighting about how the messages are coming out. This is what I'm seeing, particularly with a lot of the stuff that's been coming out online with the vaccines and whether it's been a conspiracy or all this stuff. All of us want the same thing. In fact, and none of us want the future that could happen if we just fall asleep and fight with each other. People need to keep the big picture in mind and stay vigilant and use their voice. And most importantly, understand the true nature of who you are and understand that everything is working out in God's grand plan. Might not look like it at certain moments, at certain times. But one of the reasons why I've been saying the whole time this thing started, I knew it was going to be hard. I also knew it was progress. I'm like, now we're going to see some progress. Progress on very important things, like our treatment of nature, our treatment of animals, our treatment and our reliance on these corrupt structures like pharmaceutical industries and vaccine culture and media and all of this stuff that all of us are rebelling against. We're going to see it revealed. It's going to be progress, but it's going to be difficult because where there's a lot of momentum going forward. And we see it. And people need to not lose their discrimination and try to stay connected to a certain amount of hope and belief. Doesn't mean you get stupid, but it also doesn't mean that you just allow yourself to just run off the cliff of paranoid delusions and things you don't know. Because this is the biggest problem, is people act like they know, I know it's going to happen, it's happening, and people offer this bleak future because of things that we can see, and they don't know that's going to happen, and it just spreads. This is the virus that spreads. The conspiracy virus, or whatever it is just as damaging to our health, to progress, as anything else. And so this Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn is there. It's going to be there. Okay, here we go. So as you see, this is June 22nd. So then by the end of June, from around June 29th, this Jupiter will go back into Sagittarius. So Jupiter goes back into Sagittarius the end of June. So between now and the end of June, for the next month and a half, there's still going to be more of this. It's not like it's going to stop, but we're going to be more susceptible and prone to these kind of dark possibilities. And again, notice how your mindset, notice how you pretty much react to everything the same way, because that's your mind. That's your nature. That doesn't mean this isn't bringing it in greater contrast. But notice your tendencies, and also notice how at other times in your life when you've been pressured and you've been stressed, you've been able to find the truth and the hope in what's going on. And again, that's not blind faith. That's not naivete. Again, now we wear the mantle of, well, I'm a skeptic. Well, I'm smart. I'm paying attention as this kind of badge of honor, when really all we're doing is spinning out on things that we have no idea what we're talking about. I mean, I look at the stuff people talk about now. We can take 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of actual fact or truth, and then mix it in with like 25 crazy opinions and act like all of it is factual because there's 3 or 4 facts. And then when any time like a conspiracy theory is challenged, people always go back to the 3 or 4 things that could be correct and leave out all of the conflation. And again, I'm not talking about this because I want to start an argument about what's a conspiracy theory or whatever. I'm going to talk about this in an upcoming video, though. But I'm saying it so that you can guard your own consciousness and stop getting hysterical or paranoid or carried away if you are. And instead, notice those times before in your life when things felt out of control and you were really scared, and how when you just came back to center, it restored that beauty and that faith. Because again, we're only in the present moment. We don't know what's going to happen. We get to create it. And our fears can create it as well. So after June, or as we get into June, Jupiter goes back into Sagittarius here. You'll see then he turns direct. This is in the middle of September. Jupiter turns direct in Sagittarius. I think we'll start to see some as Jupiter starts to move forward in September, we will see more. It'll be a time to put some hopeful teachings into practice, some inspired social progress collectively. This is what we can all do collectively. I'm talking about it because we're meeting in this virtual space all around the world. But collectively, we can start to, I think, we'll feel more like there's some, hope and progress ahead as Jupiter starts to move forward in Sagittarius in September. And, this is hopefully moving toward a more inspired political, decision, and more, intelligence and discrimination and wisdom coming forth. This is going to include some important elections and stuff like that in the U.S. But again, these are sort of in the collective. Individually, though, this is where all of us need to show up. If you don't have a good teacher, good teachings, it's going to be showing up now. And the spinning out on the dark attachments to the paranoid world vision and the certainty that it's all going to be, and this whole kind of, again, this vata, which is an Ayurvedic principle of ungrounded fear. So much vata anxiety right now. And this comes from Saturn in Capricorn. It's like the world is suffering from vata disorders, particularly spiritual people. It's hard to find any spiritual person who is grounded, any spiritual as they would call themselves, who is grounded. Oh, I know, it's coming. And just, man, this is the antithesis of spirituality. It's the antithesis of spirituality. Spirituality is being present. It doesn't mean we can't notice things. It doesn't mean we stop thinking or we can't look ahead to make sure that our world is protected and noticing the very, potentially dark scenarios that could come. Yes, but just freaking out or believing all of that as well. Or it takes nothing. Even people that I know have good spiritual practices and are grounded individuals. They see something that's just ridiculous, and they're all stressed out about it. Now is the time where your teachings and your teachers and your capacity to put them into practice is going to be revealed. This is a revelation for you. 1 second. I know a lot of people in spiritual circles. As someone who's been the devotee of Amma, the Indian saint, for 20 years, I know many people from that group. And, sometimes they're the most stressed out of all. They're the most fearful of all. And I get it. We're all fearful on some level. But there's not a guru in the world, a spiritual teacher in the world who says, okay, now that things are a little tough, freak out, everybody, because you're spiritual. Come on. These are the times when the same energy that creates the freak out also creates the capacity to introspect and to detach and just kind of, for me, I'm kind of, I investigate stuff anyway all the time. I'm always, and yeah, I'm as I'm looking into these things, I'm like, okay. And for me, I have to just kind of laugh like, yep, okay, here it is. I can't do anything about it. What I can do, I'm doing. This to keep calm and peaceful, to try to be, to try to not let things get too out of control with any, type of community I might have or whatever. But underneath it all, it just reinforces this idea and this understanding that you as an ego are not in control. There's great liberation in that. And by the way, that is liberation. You know what liberation is? It's, I'm not in control. This is why I say all the time that moksha, which is one of the 4 purusharthas, moksha is probably the most misunderstood because it's liberation. Guess what liberation feels like? It feels like right now. You want to know what liberation feels like? What moksha feels like? Feels like this. This is moksha. Because moksha means none of this is mine. I don't own any of this. I'm free. It doesn't mean I'm not involved. It doesn't mean I'm not still alive. It doesn't mean I'm not engaged, but it's not me. It doesn't define me. Because I'm untouched by any of this. As a matter of truth, as a dharmic principle. Because that is the truth. The truth is, we are not of this body and mind. We are pure consciousness. So Jupiter retrograde, between now and the end of June, we could really be feeling a lot of that pressure. Because it's in Capricorn, it's also with Saturn. And this is a time where there's going to be that fear. And you are being challenged to put those teachings into practice. Like I was saying the whole last year while Jupiter was in Sagittarius. It's in Sagittarius, we're feeling inspired and hopeful. But then he goes into Capricorn, and it's like, where's all that hope and inspiration? Now I got to do it. Now I got to put it into practice. Now I got to do the work. Now I got to take the guru out of my elated emotional state. Oh, my guru, I love him so much. And my guru, my spiritual, emotional life, and practice it when it goes into Capricorn. Like I said, in the West, everything is an emotion. Everything. Spirituality is an emotion. Everything's an emotion. When authentic spirituality is not. In fact, it gets destroyed by authentic spirituality. So Jupiter goes from Sagittarius into Capricorn. It's now you got to put it into practice, and it will be revealed how much you are putting into practice. And really the thing to do, there's only one thing to do, and that's to be able to sit and meditate. Sit still and meditate. That's really all you can do. That's moksha. That's liberation. And that's the highest teaching of all the great teachers and all the gurus. They say all this other stuff that's so complicated because they know we'll do anything but meditate. So they humor us with all kinds of, yeah, okay, say this mantra, do this thing, service, da 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 da. Hopefully thinking one day we'll collapse and meditate. Because nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to sit still, be quiet, and breathe and be present. But I promise you now, if you do that, and you take the energy that has been perhaps spinning out a little bit, and you channel it inward, you will find the deepest connection to your guru that you've ever found. And by the way, this is also why when we go through immense suffering, that's when the truth of the guru is revealed. So again, with all the teachings that you've had, that you've picked up, listen to what your guru has said. Look at what they do. You know, I love my guru so much because Amma, the saint from India, she's putting out videos and she talks about these things all the time. You know, and she says it very simply but very powerfully. And she always says the same things. It hasn't changed since this. She's just saying, I know everybody's upset about Corona and we got to listen, social distance, we know this. And then she just gets into the same thing she always says. And I don't say that in a trivial way. I just mean to her, it's like, yeah, okay, so now it's this. Happiness is a choice. Be present. Do your spiritual practice. Realize no matter what comes my way, I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm going to choose, and again, that might sound like an emotion. That's just a simple way to say it. I'm going to choose to say, okay, this is the way it is, and happy in the spiritual sense. Spiritual happiness is not this emotional high. When I say emotional, I mean that. Of course, spirituality brings a happiness that's more related to peace, as I said. Peace is better than happiness because it's not an emotion. It's a state of mind. Just like love isn't an emotion. Like my guru Amma says, love is a flow. Just like peace is a flow. They're all the same. Once you get that point, love, peace, happy in that realm of bliss, it's all the same state. The state, there's not even there's no distinguishing the states because it's not an emotional state. An emotional state is one and then the next. And it's like a button getting pushed. Spiritual peace has joy and happiness and contentment and bliss. It has it all in there. And because that's your true nature. It's not conditioned on what the world is doing. It's easy to get excited and inspired with it like a Jupiter in Sagittarius or something because it's like, oh, I feel this, da 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 da. Capricorn is like, okay, now you feel this. Now you got to put that thing into practice. So do it. Do it. And that's what mean old Saturn does. He says, well, I'm glad you had fun with that. Now let's see how much you actually really learned. Right? So, what do we got here? Anybody's here spooked? We're all just sending out the light and grounding, right? Are you spooked? Eric Kappa, I know you. How you doing, Eric? Nice to see you. Eileen King, never practiced breath work more in my life than I have the last couple months. Yeah, that's right. See, this is what happens is one of the biggest things that happens, even with the world and our nature in this world, the world is just fine the way it is. It's supposed to be the way it is. It's here to frustrate us. Just like that's what our karma is. The world is here to frustrate us and to provide a miserable contrast. It's here to be, on some level, miserable. I know, I'm full of joy today, aren't I? No, it's here to be a failure so that we can contrast this world and everything we want from it. Again, the world is fine. The world is here to show us our mind. because everything we want from the world, we never get. So we have to turn toward that which is eternal and beyond the world. And the first thing we do is we realize that the world is not even the world. The world is my projection of the world. The world is Maya, illusion based on my mind. That's what the world is. What you call the world is your mind interpreting things. And you know it's true because other people interpret it differently. So it can't be the world. It can't be a universal truth if everybody sees it different. 2 + 2 = 4 for everyone. That's truth. The world is this way. It's just your idea. There's nothing true about it. It's illusion. It's your mind, not the world. A truth is not debatable. It's a fact, right? That's what science is based on. So we could even scientifically say that the world is absolutely not real on any provable level. This is literally this is a type of Vedanta where the ancient scientists said, we know that the world is not real because it's different for everybody, so it can't be scientifically true and real. So the world is here to appear as something we want that we never get. It's here to frustrate us on the spiritual level. It's here to frustrate your ego, so you give up and surrender. It's all very simple, actually. All these things I'm saying are like very simple. These are the heart of every Dharmic teaching. It's just we hear these words and they grind through our mind, and we don't listen to them, or we don't understand. Okay, right, illusion, Maya, right, but this is happening because we're not living these teachings. We hear them and their ideas kind of buzz around in our head. Oh yeah, okay, that. And then as soon as it's like, but my job, this, and look, I'm not making fun of it. I'm the same way. I'm not judgmental. I'm really not. I'm the same way. I'm triggered, worried, hoping the economies don't collapse, hoping people don't get sick. I'm the same way. I'm not different. But I have been doing spiritual practice for a long time. So after that, I can retreat into something that is at least keeps me grounded. Because, I'm also older than people might think. And I've seen this, some version of this has been going on for a long time. This isn't the first time I've heard, okay, this is the end of the world now, okay. And I've been woke to stuff since a long time. It's not shocking to me that there's conspiracies with international organizations and governments and media and rich people doing stuff. Yeah, I know. It's been going on a long time. Forever, in fact. That's the world. So try to be, still in the midst of that. And, that's a great metaphor because, the world is also like a hurricane, but there's the eye of the hurricane, like a cyclone spinning around, but it has a silent center. Trying to be that silent witness, that silent being in the middle of the cyclone. These are potent metaphors that I keep in mind. That I, with my meditation and whatnot, that I keep in mind. So Raris says, mean old shunny. They're not mean. It's just that's the way it feels to us, He's just like, Saturn is that part, it's that energy that's just not interested in, I don't care what you feel, I don't care what you're feeling, and you're all emotional and you want this. Okay, what's happened? Let's see it. This is because at the end, that's all that's going to matter. This is what Saturn's about. This is why it's related to the death and the limitation and the structure and the reality check. Because at the end, that's all that's going to matter. As your life is leaving you, you'll realize the true nature of yourself. And at the end, all that will matter is, I didn't learn this, I didn't do this. And then you come back to do it again. We come here in these bodies to have these experiences. They're all tests. That's all they are. They're just tests. They're tests of the true spirit, of the true self. When you connect to the true self, you're just established in truth. And the tests are like, okay, this one's harder. And as it gets harder, I get more still. So, Barrett Duran says, transcend and to experience the stillness. Yep. Darcy says, I hear the term woke one more time. I'm a puke. We were woke before the term was coined. Yeah, indeed. You know, I was actually, you know, thinking about the first time that I realized that, especially I learned about like the Federal Reserve and our monetary system and like, you know, like United Nations and International Monetary Fund and all. I mean, this was like, I still lived in Maryland. So this was like the mid 90s. I mean, actually, I think I think it was even, it wasn't midnight, it was early 90s. Oh yeah, early 90s. Yeah. I was still living in Maryland. Yeah. So, and I mean, so it doesn't mean it's any less important. It just means that especially you want to be really aware and just be careful. And I'm just saying this to guard your own consciousness and mind, that do not just, you know, consider the source of people that are just flipping out of control about, my God, you know, like Bill Gates, he's going to make money and there's this and he's funding these organizations. And now it's all going to be like, what do you think has been happening forever? If it's not him, it's someone else. It's always been this way. Yes, it's there. We got to see it. But my God, be grounded. This is nothing new. And again, because people just woke to it, like, yeah, but it's just like when a child just wakes up to something, really. And I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm really not. But it's like, did you see the moon? And kids are like, they get all excited. It's like, yeah, we see it. Okay. Yeah. That's the way the world is. It's always the way the world is. You just saw it. I get it. You're excited. But Lord, and for those that are getting so recently so excited because, you know, the last couple of years especially, even if you see it, don't get triggered by it. Don't get triggered by the woke spasm, okay? We see it, it's there, and we got to be vigilant, especially right now as people are easily triggered by fears en masse with governments. Yeah, that's one of many issues, and it's not the only issue. People, I'll just say this last thing. I don't want to get too into it because people just get so upset, but I'm more frustrated that now that whole kind of thing is dominating everybody's mind, and we're taking our eyes off the ball, which is what the real opportunities are here. The real opportunities to make real change, to like natural health, clean living, treatment of animals, treatment of the environment, treatment of yourself, meditation, spirituality, all of these opportunities that we've had the whole time that I've been talking about the entire time. This time to be alone, this time to learn how to work remotely, getting back our time, stop destroying the resource. All of these things are great opportunities that we need to be focused on to bring forth the next world. And we need to be vigilant that these people don't go crazy with other kind of weird vax solutions, of course. But guard your aura, guard your mentality, guard your consciousness. And notice again how your consciousness is being revealed. How much does it take? You say you're a spiritual person, and yet the next conspiracy theory video you watch, you're ready to jump out of the window. Well, again, I'm not making fun of it. I'm saying that should be showing you like, okay, I'm not really putting my teachings into practice here. I can investigate this and look into it further. But if I'm all freaked out now and emotional and my vata's going crazy because of this possible thing, then I'm not practicing my spirituality. I'm just triggered. And so again, I'm not making fun of it. I'm not judging anyone. I'm not saying, but I'm alerting to these situations that we need to be careful of now with this retrograde debilitated Jupiter in Capricorn. That's what we're seeing. So be careful of this tendency to maybe get triggered by by your fears, and lose your discrimination. And remember the good teachings. Remember the good teachers. Again, I'll just tell people, my guru, Amma.org. You can look her videos, amritapuri.org. Puts out great videos where she talks about these things, talks about spiritual satsang. They're just beautiful. So, as Darcy says, I get what you're saying. These are practices to manage our state. Of course, yeah, right. And so, yeah, so folks, I'm always like that. We need to send Sam some chill-fi before he strokes out. Hey, man, I'm good. I'm always like this. After this, I played tennis today. I'm feeling good. I'll say this. I think we're going to start getting back into things. By the way, I said all of this when it started. When we first saw what was going on, I said it would go at least till early May, probably the middle of May, early May. We would start getting back to it again, and that's happening. It's been an intense couple months, but things are starting to come back online, socially. And as we get better data about things, we're going to adjust, because we are realizing that it is a certain demographic. It's people with a lot of comorbidities. It's, older people. I think it's something like a third of the deaths were in nursing care facilities or people that worked in them. And so, again, we're not going to just let this completely destroy our life. And I think we're going to, and these are the things everybody needs to be doing. We need to be more intelligent about, especially healthier eating practices, healthy nutrition, immune system, and just good habits. This is what you can do. Everybody can do this. And the way that we're all going to uplift each other is by being individually accountable and sane, and not lose our discrimination out of fear and outrage, because there's enough to be outraged about as well. I mean, even talking about politics and all that stuff. At this point, the best thing that we could be doing is managing our own mind and consciousness, and I think that's a very good indicator of our spiritual teachings as well now, is to really notice this and make sure to put your teachings into practice. So, folks, I'm going to leave it at that, and share this video if you like. And like I said, if people are interested in looking at learning about retrograde planets, because we do have a lot of retrograde planets, I do have this course on retrograde planets. It's actually really, really good. About 10 hours, only $60. Great time to be studying on your own. And a lot of people took that course, and you can check that out as well. So thanks, folks. I hope you have a good day and do some deep diving into your spiritual practices.